6 on September 3.
This jet is the biggest commercially built passenger aircraft in the world. It is built in the biggest building in the world. It carries the President of the United States of America. It ferries the space shuttle. It will soon blast missiles out of the sky with a laser. It has flown 15 million flights, totaling 35 billion miles, 74,000 trips to the moon and back. And as this mighty jet dominates the skies, it makes the world a smaller place. The Boeing 747 is a jet of gigantic proportions. Built so big that it still holds onto the size record after more than 3 decades of flight. Today, this machine's might still inspires those who built it to boast.
We're the biggest and the best. The whole world over, everybody recognizes the profile of this airplane. Everybody knows that everything else is just an airplane, but this is a 747.
I'm out there with my child at the runway or something like that, and I see one of these take off and flying, and it's 100% satisfaction. You see something you built actually flying through the air. And you tell your children, you know, I made that.
But this jet is more than the sum of its staggering dimensions.
The first giant 747 is presented to the world.
1, 2, 3.
The 747 has a mythical stature that remains undiminished. Cutting-edge technology, the passion of the people who build it, the 98-acre building in Everett, Washington, where these giant jets are built. These are the elements that combine to make the story of the Boeing 747 a tale of testing the limits, then flying far beyond them.
Many of the people, from the engineers, the mechanics, the management that are here today, their fathers, their grandfathers, and aunts and uncles have all worked on the 747. I think all of us view it as a really important legacy that it's now our watch. It's our turn to carry on from here and make the airplane better and better.
They say first impressions are everything. And one thought pops into anyone's mind the first time they encounter a Boeing 747.
This airplane is huge.
Even the people who work with the jet day in and day out remain stunned by its size.
It's because it's so big, you're just so awestruck by it.
The extreme size was something that you wouldn't think would ever get off the ground.
The awesome dimensions of the 747-400, the most current version of the jet, dwarf every other commercial jet in production today. This jet is 231 feet 10 inches long. If someone could manage to stand a 747 on its tail in Seattle's Safeco Field, the stadium's retractable roof would need to be open, because the jet's nose would poke out of the ballpark about 15 feet. The 747-400's wings cover a 5,600 square foot area. They could serve as a parking lot for 45 mid-sized cars. And when this jet is filled to its capacity with fuel, the wingspan grows. Full tanks pull the wings down slightly, and the span grows from 211 feet to 213.
1186 or Kilo 12, looks like we have a clear shot to our alley.
186, Kilo 13 to the gate, and...
The jet's cockpit sits 29 feet above the ground. And talk about a tall tail. The empennage, or tail section, tops out at 63 feet, the height of a 5-story apartment building. Even something as light as air takes on a certain weight when it encounters the jumbo.
I suppose that the scale can't be underestimated, you know, when you think about the fact that when it's pressurized, the cabin is so enormous that the air inside of it weighs more than a ton.
Fully fueled and loaded to capacity, the 747-400 can weigh up to 875,000 pounds. And Boeing will break that barrier soon with a brand new version of the jet called the 747-400ER, which stands for Extended Range. That behemoth will weigh in at 910,000 pounds. Heavy metal indeed.
The most amazing thing about the 400 is just how many people and how much cargo and baggage we put on, and then we add the fuel on top of it, and the thing just takes off. It never ceases to amaze me how these things get off the ground. It's just bewildering.
These things get off the ground with the help of 4 engines that generate a total of more than 250,000 pounds of thrust. More power than 7 F-18 fighter jets combined. Thanks to the physics of thrust and lift, when a 747 closes in on 200 miles per hour on the runway, a miracle called rotation occurs, and 875,000 pounds of aluminum, fuel, passengers, and cargo lifts itself skyward.
But on takeoff, on rotation, the pilot was sitting 50 feet up in the air, and the passenger in the last row of the airplane, right at the back, was about 3 feet from the runway. So you can imagine that's quite a big machine.
That takeoff becomes even more amazing when you realize that the Wright brothers' first flight could have been accomplished within the 150 feet of the 747's economy section. Don't let the 747's bulk fool you. It's fast, too. This jet reaches speeds of up to 720 miles per hour during testing.
The airplane was designed with a high-speed wing when it was originally designed. The wing has been improved somewhat over the years, but and to this day is still the fastest subsonic commercial jet transport in the world.
And though the indicators on the 47 don't go over Mach 1, sometimes during testing, the jet does. That's over 750 miles an hour.
When we do flutter testing to show that the airplane high-speed characteristics are acceptable, we're required to fly out to 0.97 or 97% of the speed of sound. And that's a very dynamic condition. It involves diving the airplane pretty sharply. And then you have to do maneuvers once you get to that Mach number. There have been probably cases where there has been, at least locally on the airplane, some supersonic flow.
Airports around the world spent millions on renovations to accommodate the big new jet.
A key part of the 747 introduction of the service, and again even more so with the 400, was how on earth do we fit this around an airport that's built for smaller jets? And that was a key question. In fact, so much so that it helped define what's called the 80-meter box, which is the outside diameter, or the outside dimensions of a notional box within which everybody has tried to stay since.
Airport blast fences also grew. The better to deal with a 300-mile-an-hour jet velocity that explodes 100 feet behind this plane when the engines are fully throttled up.